from David A. Richardson Memorial Stadium is the SFL, and it's Wild Card Weekend, the last game of Wild Card Weekend. I'm your play-by-play commentator, Ramos Deng. Alongside me in the booth is Mr. Brett Solberg. We have the Carolina Skyhawks against the Minnesota Legend, Brett. And, you know, two teams, we're coming into the playoffs. We said any team can win the championship game coming into this playoff bracket. It's insane, the competition that we have. Give me your keys for the matchup for both teams.
Well, let's just say, Ramos, probably one of the weirdest 5-12 matchups we ever had, maybe because of the fact that we're so used to seeing Minnesota on top of the Central Division, but they didn't win it this season. So now they're sinking themselves to the 12th seed and now have to play on the road against a Carolina team that feels like a night and day team between games on the road and at home, and they're going to get some home cooking. The key here is just going to see how their running backs spread out. We're talking about the number 1 and number 2 running backs in terms of carries in this game by Riley Quintero and Colin Hart. One of these two running backs is going to dominate in this game? It's plain and simple.
Yeah, Carolina has had a knack, especially inside the 10-yard line, to put touchdowns on the board via the rushing attack. And it's going to be the home team on the field first on offense, as this kick will sail through the Carolina Skyhawks warp mark, and the home team will start from their own 20-yard line. A Carolina Skyhawk team that has been in the up and up over the last couple of seasons, led by Marcus Dunhill, the season 14 MVP, 4-time All-Star, last with the Fort Worth Toros. So coming into a new squad and even elevating this Carolina Skyhawk team to even greater heights after a very good season last year. Handoff, though, this one is going to go to Quintero, and he's got nothing doing on the play. For the Carolina Skyhawk offense, Riley Quintero, Harish Prasad, the halfbacks, Tony Zoma is the fullback, Nolan Pierce, Chase Earl, Adam Banks, Chris Curtis are the wide receivers, Vince DeSantis is the tight end, Kate Palmer, Chad Rowland, Ricky Rigatoni, and Chris Cross are in the offensive line, as we see a man in motion. That is Nolan Pierce from left to right. Dunhill to throw. Dunhill with pressure. That pass is incomplete to the feet of his receiver. Good pressure right there, Brett, by the Legend defense.
Yeah, and what Carolina needs to do is they need to almost flip the script if you're playing against a Minnesota defense, especially that is pretty effective with the run, coming in, just allowing 91 yards of rushing per game. You want to dive into that pass attack, and Marcus Dunhill has barely passed it all this season.
Full wide receiver set. Dunhill to throw. Dunhill throws deep, and the pass is caught. Pass is complete. Nolan Pierce with the catch and a first down for the Skyhawks.
Yeah, this is the first overall pick in Nolan Pierce that has been relatively quiet all season. Just 7 receptions heading into this game, but 3 of them leading for touchdowns. So if they're going to use that run game, it can't be just Chris Curtis and Chase Earl. They've got to use every option available. It's a good start to get to Nolan Pierce.
3 wide receivers set this time. Nickel defense for the Minnesota Legend. Minnesota Legend that historically is a very strong defensive unit. Handoff goes to Quintero this time. Again, maybe just half a yard for the running back. The defense for the Legend, Angela Meerkat and Mark Mello are the defensive ends. Chloe Meerkat and Max Knight are the defensive tackles. Matthew Alvarado, Stephen Black, and Stefan Forge are the linebackers. David Leathers, Nicholas Frossel, Joni Bravo are the corners. Lynn Shady, Jubilee Marsh, and Derek Meerkat are the safeties. This is a pretty high throw to Chris Curtis, incomplete, another 3rd and long.
Yeah, this is going to be a Minnesota defense that's going to apply as much pressure to the line as possible. We're talking about a team coming into this game first in sacks, 36 sacks amongst 12 games. You're looking at 3 sacks per game from the Minnesota front 7.
They're showing pressure. Again, Dunhill rolls to the left. Dunhill passes across his body. And this one is intercepted. Climbing the ladder and still going. And then a face mask on top of it. David Letters with the interception and tack on 15 more.
And that one just a blatant, they're calling it incidental, but that was probably a blatant frustration face mask that I've seen from Adam Banks, and you just absolute amazing highlight play from David Leathers, who has been all over the field this season, his 6th this season in interceptions, and now Minnesota. If they're going to take advantage of this opportunity, they need to do it in this drive.
What a play and what a start for the Minnesota defense. As this toss play will go to the right, Colin Hart breaks the tackle, cannot get off the second tackler. And Minnesota will have about a 2nd and 8. A Minnesota Legend offense, again, as you were saying, heavily relying on the run. But don't sleep on former MVP Johnny Reno.
I know Reno's been pretty serviceable this season. He's, top 8 in touchdowns, and his QBR is in the top 10.
Reno to throw, passing, and the pass is intercepted. Another beautiful defensive play here for the Carolina Skyhawks as Keepy Curtis makes the play.
Yeah, and that one was just a terrible zone read from Reno, and that's a pass you definitely don't want to throw in a situation like zone, because you've got 2 defenders in that area looking around EJ Minson, who is your second target next to Jay Taylor. So it's interesting that he went that route for the first pass on that drive, and Skippy, right on the mark. She gets right in front of Minson and then gets the interception.
Both defenses starting very strong. Handoff to the left. Quintero nothing doing again. Loss of 2 yards. Alvarado makes the play. This Minnesota Legend defense so far this season, it's always a strong unit. Number 3 in points allowed a game, 17 points per game. Carolina just behind at 17.3. That's 5th best in the SFL, and every significant category, Minnesota's top 10 defensively. As Dunhill will throw again, the pass deep, the pass is caught. Again, trying with the same area of the field, and it's a big play for the Skyhawks.
Yeah, and this time Leathers stayed back a little bit further. He was anticipating a little bit deeper from Banks. Maybe he wasn't anticipating that cut to kind of change the speed, get separation. So Adam Banks had that opportunity to get open, and Dunhill threw a magical pass.
Carolina Skyhawks, only 18 giveaways offensively this season. That's 2nd best in the SFL, and the running game is having no success as Quintero again loses a yard.
Yeah, it had to have.
Go ahead.
It had to have been Minnesota's MO during scouting, is to just shut down Quintero entirely. And they've been doing well through this first 3.5 minutes. They just need to sustain that for all 40 minutes.
I was about to say, may have to rely on the shoulders of Marcus Dunhill, as the other one is Faris Prasad actually getting a couple of yards, not too much there. Leathers makes another tackle, and it's another 3rd down and 9, well outside of field goal range.
Yeah, and that probably needs to be the goal for Minnesota, is to get them into 3rd downs, because Carolina has only converted 48% of their 3rd downs, 20th in the league.
Dunhill to throw, clean pocket, the pass deep, almost picked off again by Leathers. 4th and 9, and Minnesota has another stop.
Carolina's mixing up their wide receivers in their formations, getting different guys on different sides of the field. This time Curtis was on that right side, but Leathers again up to the task, stayed in that kind of flat area in the zone, and got a great deflection once again.
This punt goes away, trying to pin him inside the 10-yard line. They won't, but inside the 20 is as good as it's going to get, as Minnesota will set up shop. Johnny Reno's the quarterback. Colin Hart and Isaac Knox are the halfbacks. The fullback is Robert Henson Jr. Wide receivers are Quake Mam, Diesel Powell, Jay Taylor, and EJ Minson. The tight end is Jason Franz. And in the offensive line, Brookie Burr, Axel Raven, Carly Forge, Griffin King, and Ruthie Raven. To throw, Johnny Reno just checks it down to Colin Hart, and Hart has about 6 yards on that one. 2nd and manageable.
Yeah, and there was 2 things that transpired on that play that end up being the result. You have to get Reno, shaking off that interception earlier, and then you still have to get Colin Hart involved. So it was a good 1-2 punch on that play.
Heavy set here for the Legend. Handoff, nothing doing there as Shravan Prasad makes the tackle. 3rd down and 3.
Now let's quickly talk about these RB2s from respective squads. Harish Prasad for Carolina has been doing a lot of great work to be that secondary effort, but it has been a sudden rise of Isaac Knox over the last couple of weeks to get Minnesota involved in the run game.
With the pressure, the pass is caught, just a simple shallow cross as Jay Taylor finds the open spot in the middle of the defense, and it's a first down for Minnesota.
Good composure from Reno as well, because you got, blue jerseys ready to, chomp at the bit for a sack, and he just dumps it down on the shallow cross, get the first down.
1st and 10, handoff. That's going to be Colin Hart, and there's an injury.
Oh boy, is that Shravan?
And, yep, that's Shravan Prasad, the mainstay here on the middle of the defensive front for Carolina is down. Hopefully he can come back later on in the game.
Look, Ramos, I think I can make this joke here. I think it's the wrong Prasad that got injured. Yeah. Because if you see it historically and statistically proven that Harish is the injured one and not Shravan, so this is going to be an interesting twist to an already twisty wild card round here, Ramos.
Yeah, absolutely. 2nd down and 6, especially going against a run-heavy team in Minnesota. And there's another handoff, breaking a tackle, and getting about 4 yards is Colin Hart again. So 3rd down and 2 upcoming.
And I think that's just going to put it more on the shoulders of Danny Stinson, who is probably, in that top 5 watch list for Defensive Player of the Season in my mind. So he's going to have to even brunt the load even more, trying to stop Colin Hart.
Handoff again, and just enough for a first down is Isaac Knox, the 6'3", 235 running back, 3rd season, all with Minnesota, getting a first.
And these are both teams that love to chew up that clock and make sure that they dominate their own time of possession going through here. Carolina 21:05, Minnesota 20:48, both in the top 15.
Hart gets another handoff, a gain of 3 yards there for the legend. This Carolina defense so far this season, a really strong unit. 12th in the league in rushing yards allowed a game, so that's in the top half of the SFL. They do have 27 takeaways as a unit all season long. That's 2nd best in the SFL. Handoff, nothing doing there as Carolina was ready for it. And that is the backup, actually, Cedric Hodge, linebacker.
Yeah, you've got Mojo McLean in there, you've got Danny Stinson, and then someone's got to fill in for the injured Shravan Prasad. So Hodge is going to get some looks, at least on this drive. Bunch formation on 3rd and 6.
3rd down and 6. Reno passes middle. The pass is middle! What an interception by Ryan. And that is a nice hands catch brought to you by Retroid already in the 1st quarter. Put a Retroid handheld in your hands and play the only video game with your player in it. SFL 4K23. How about that, Brett?
That looked like a guaranteed catch for Deezer Powell as well, but Mike Ryan swooping in like the Skyhawk he is to reach his outstretched hands to grab the interception. Again, another Minnesota drive that stalls and just changes the momentum of this game. Carolina has a little bit of momentum now.
2nd takeaway for the number 2 takeaway defense in the SFL, as Quintero this time has his best run of the night, 6 yards, to put Carolina in advantageous position here on 2nd down.
Yeah, and I was thinking Carolina was going to stick to what got them to the 8-4 record and the East Division crown. They're going to hand that ball off to Quintero come hell or high water, even if it's not working early on. He's going to get his looks.
Handoff again. That's Harish Prasad breaking a tackle and getting about 5 to move the chains again for the Skyhawks.
And they just need to replicate this, going forward. Just continue to get those runs from Prasad, runs from Quintero. Get those forward 5-6 yards if they don't want to pass that rock.
4 receiver set. Dunhill gives it to Quintero, and again, another good handoff. Last 3 runs that we've seen from Carolina, Brett, the offensive line has done their work.
Yeah, and it's been completely different from their last drive where it felt like Quintero was having absolute struggles getting even to the line of scrimmage. Now the blocking is figuring out to open up those gaps so that Quintero can run through, that Prasad can run through and get those major yards. That's a great 10-yard run.
Alvarado showing a blitz off the A-gap. He comes with the blitz, but Harish Prasad runs to the left and gets a good block, and Harish Prasad gets 8 yards, and this is Carolina's best offensive drive of the game.
You know, I'd be a little bit frustrated if I'm Prasad personally, because it didn't look like Curtis or DeSantis gave good enough blocks. He actually bumped into Curtis and lost a yard or two from that, so he could have gotten a first down, but he'll still take 8.
And they will probably give the ball again to their halfback. That's exactly what they're going to do. Riley gets a first down as he breaks a tackle and gets 2 on the play. Another run for Carolina and another move the sticks.
Yeah, and talking about these two teams, I bet both these teams would be completely satisfied if they both ran 60 times each between their running backs and would get those points. And we're seeing the run game from both these squads tonight.
3 wide receiver set. Dunhill to throw. Tosses middle, and the pass is incomplete off the hands of Adam Banks. A rare drop, and it's 2nd and 10.
Yeah, and you look at these receivers as well. Curtis leads the way with 41 receptions, and then you've got Chase Earl and Adam Banks almost at 30 receptions themselves. They have the hands to do it. Sometimes, you know, we've seen this over the last couple weeks, you know, major drops, especially from Chase Earl, and we've seen it from DeSantis a time or two as well.
The defense of Minnesota shifting a little bit. 3 wide receiver set. Handoff, and Riley gets a broken tackle, maybe gets about a yard and a half. And Carolina will have another 3rd and 7 plus. And that's been an advantage for Minnesota so far here in the first quarter.
Yeah, Carolina continues these stretch runs. I'm looking at, you know, someone like Stephon Forge that needs to make sure he can recognize the play set and get to the running back.
Dunhill to throw, gets pressure, and the pass is incomplete. The pressure got to Marcus Dunhill, and it's going to be 4th and 7. Carolina in field goal range, though. So chances are we're going to see Malone Brown. 5'10", 260.
That Minnesota front seven, super tough to get through. Just the line alone gets 26.5 sacks amongst that line. That's a scary set of linemen.
Brown kicks it right between the uprights. It's 3-0. Carolina over Minnesota. Carolina with the interception, capitalizing with the first 3 points of the game. And so far, Brett, it looks like the 38.5. You know, we don't normally see a lot of 30s on the over/under, but maybe pretty accurate so far.
I mean, yeah, we're talking about, you know, two teams that, you know, allow less than 20 points per game respectively on their side. Carolina has only allowed 14.6 points at home, whereas on the road, Minnesota only allows 19.5. So we're looking at accurate numbers here.
Yeah, and they run the ball so much. This should be a relatively quick game. You know, when you run the ball a whole lot, the clock keeps ticking, and, you know, there's not a lot of clock stoppage, as this return will get a little bit past the 20-yard line, and that's where Minnesota will start their drive at the 27.
And we've already seen, you know, low-scoring games in this wild card already. We just need to go right back to Albuquerque Sin City. It was 17-3.
Yeah. Yeah, you really don't know what to expect here in the playoffs. It's a brand new season, and truly anybody can win it in so many ways. As Reno tries to scramble, and he goes down. A sack on the play by Carolina. Phil Hall, the 16-season veteran, with the tackle for loss.
Yeah, if anybody had Carolina getting the first sack of the game on their bingo card, they got a lucky one there, because Carolina's not a team that usually gets sacks. End of the first quarter.
End of the first quarter. Carolina 3, Minnesota 0. You're watching the Simulation Football League here on the Virtual Football Network. Aerial coverage of today's game provided by Dax Drone Works, aerial photography and videography services for real estate, events, marketing, and more. Learn more at daxdroneworks.com. Here in Raleigh, North Carolina, Ramos Lynn and Brett Solberg. Brett, a defensive game so far, 3 interceptions so far, and only 3 points.
Yeah, it's been ill-advised throws from both these quarterbacks. They need to clean things up and make sure they get secure catches from their wide receivers.
Reno throws deep, and the pass is in heavy traffic. Trying to connect with Deezer Powell, that is incomplete. And the secondaries have been just completely unbelievable. Yes, ill-advised throws, but what about the interceptions, man? Like, we've seen incredible catches by DBs, especially Ryan's interception.
Yeah, especially and the David Leathers interception that started it all off as well. That was a leaping Superman grab too.
Yeah. As Reno throws, the pass is caught! Over the outstretched arms of Ryan. I thought for sure that was going to be intercepted, but Taylor makes the catch for a big first down.
And you're going to see this on the replay. You can tell Reno just, changed the way that he threw that football, just changed the trajectory a little bit, just enough so that it wasn't so much of a zip and there was a little bit of arc on that football. So Ryan couldn't get to it, and Eagling couldn't get to it, and it got to the receiver. It was a great catch from Jay Taylor.
Reno to throw again, clean pocket, throws middle, the pass is incomplete. This time, Ryan makes the play on the ball, delivers a perfectly timed hit, and it's 2nd and 10.
And we're going to see that a lot from the Carolina secondary as well. I think of guys like Ryan, like Skippy Curtis, like Davidson Joseph. We've seen, a time or two. They'll make sure to jar that ball loose with hits, not so much with pass deflections.
2nd down and 10 yards to go. Reno to throw, middle, the pass incomplete again. Another perfectly provided hit. I mean, these defenders are playing incredibly as Eamon Eagling is on the hit. And, man, the secondaries, bro. Like, you have so much talent. We have not even talked about guys like Davison Joseph, the 11th season veteran.
Yeah, I think Minnesota probably needs to change that mindset. They need to get their receivers ahead.
Reno deep double coverage, incomplete. Trying to connect with Deezer Powell. And Minnesota unable really to capitalize when they get into Carolina territory. And they will have to punt.
Yeah, and what we saw, the catch from Jay Taylor was getting ahead of the Carolina secondary, and I think that's what Minnesota needs to do moving forward. They can't get into these, double coverage 50-50 balls because Carolina's just going to pop that ball loose.
Ball bounces into the end zone for a touchback, and Carolina will start at their own 20-yard line. Carolina, who had their best offensive drive of the first half on the last possession, getting 3 points on the board. And it's been the running game that is finally starting to work for the Skyhawks. It took a couple drives. They do, but they will give the ball to Riley Quintero, and Quintero gets about 3 yards. Decent opening right there by the RB1. 3 yards.
Yeah, whenever you see something like I Pro, I Spread, or I Twins, where there's receivers on two receivers specifically on one side of the football, Carolina tends to kind of drive that away and make sure that they run the football.
Heavy set this time with 2 tight ends. Handoff. Prasad gets lifted and thrown down after a gain of about 3 yards. Alvarado on the stop. 3rd down and 4, and likely a passing situation here for the Skyhawks.
Well, for Carolina, I wouldn't suspect it to be a pass right away. This is still a run favorite scenario. It's 4 yards. Quintero can get there.
Man in motion. That is Adam Banks. And they will roll out. Dunhill will throw. Dunhill passes, and the pass is incomplete. Another perfectly timed deflection by Alvarado. 4th and 4, and Carolina will have to punt again.
And this is what Minnesota wants to do. They want to make Carolina struggle in that run game, force 3rd and medium and long situations, and then trust in their linebackers and secondaries. Maybe not get interceptions, but just deflect that ball and force Carolina to punt so they get the football back.
They will get it in pretty good field position with the ball at the 25-yard line. That's the line of scrimmage. Fair catch is made at the 41. So, again, Minnesota with decent field position, but once they've been able to just get past Carolina's side of the field, they've hit a wall. 8 minutes left here in the second quarter. Minnesota still scoreless, and Minnesota offense that scores 23 points a game. As Reno will drop back to throw. The pass is caught, and Deezer Powell probably stole it from his teammate. Gets the first down.
Yeah, it was either going to go to Taylor or Powell, and Powell decided, you know what, I'm going to grab it myself. But that's just open space in a zone play. You could tell, Mike Ryan, stepping a little bit too far back, was expecting a little bit of a deeper play down the middle. And then you had two crossing receivers in Taylor and Powell who were just wide open. So that's an easy throw if I'm Johnny Reno.
First down at the 42 of Carolina. Reno to throw, drops back even more, now tries to scramble, gets about 5, 6, and slides after a gain of 7 yards. Second down and 3.
He was hoping for an additional block to get McLean out of his way, but he had to scramble through. He got 7 yards. He's going to make it, a more favorable, second down situation. This is a easy run play.
Yes, Colin Hard gets about 2. Well, actually, they will give him forward progress and right at the line of gain. Carolina will choose not to challenge that one, so it will be
challenges and timeouts are a luxury in the playoffs, so I think they're going to let that slide.
Yep. Reno to throw. Reno pump fakes and now goes down. Beautiful play on the outside, and that is again Cedric Hodge playing in place of Shravan Prasad with the sack.
Might be time to release Shravan if Hodge continues this kind of style of play. We've already said his name a couple times, and is stepped up admirably. And now Minnesota in a 2nd and 15. This screams pass with the quads formation.
And bumped out of field goal range as Reno will throw again. The pass middle. Oh, what a catch and what a throw as Taylor gets 17 and a first down.
That's a beautifully thrown ball by Reno, and we've seen that in seasons past. Not so much this season, just because it feels like Minnesota's taken a step back, but getting it over the outstretched hands of TD Jack, it's tough because even she has been, a prime time player. Hasn't seen it a lot this season, but 9 interceptions to her name, and she's made big impacts when she needs to. It's a great job to get it over her hands.
Second season with Carolina, unable to put her mitts on it. Handoff goes to Hard, and a really nice play on the middle of the field. I wasn't able to catch a number, but only a 2-yard gain. That could have gone for way more, Brett.
Yeah, and it feels like I'm talking about the same team when it comes to, recognizing the play for these defenses. But again, the Carolina linebackers, they just need to recognize where Hart's going, and they need to stuff him right away. It's a great stop.
Split-backs formation, a sweep play, and that one is completely blown up in the backfield as Ryan gets the tackle for loss.
Yeah, and that one may be more designed for Hart. He is the faster back between him and Knox, so they're hoping the sweep would get like a little bit of a burst of speed on the outside, but giving it to Knox, you're not going to get that same effect.
4 receivers again. Reno to throw. Reno goes deep, and the pass should have been intercepted. It is incomplete as Ryan as well as Ibari both had a chance.
No, that was just way overthrown to Powell. There was no chance that Deezer would have gotten a hand on the football, and I think Ibari should have gotten that football, get the interception, but now Minnesota's going to have to kick this 35-yarder just to tie the game.
And on top of that, that was the good old hospital pass as the receiver paid for it. 35-yard field goal attempt. Melillo trying to break the deadlock here, break the scoreless number on the board for Minnesota. The ball goes through the uprights. 3-3, Carolina and Minnesota. And this does have the vibes of that Albuquerque-Sin City game, Brett. I mean, it's whatever team blinks first and the other team can score a touchdown, could end up being the deciding factor here.
Yeah, this is becoming a situation where I feel like the first team to score a touchdown is going to win this game. Both these defenses know what these offenses are bringing to the table and are kind of doing like a bend but don't break, mentality from both these squads. And both these offenses, they're not going to stop with that run game. That's how they got them to the playoffs. So we're going to see a lot more runs through these next 24 minutes.
Yes, we are. I mean, it's absolutely, to your point, is the strength of both of these teams. They've invested heavily in the running attacks with running backs and fullbacks. This handoff goes to Riley Quintero, and he will get about 7 and make it a 2nd down and 3. The rooms are going fast for the 2025 SFL convention, kicking off the league's 25th anniversary season, July 10th through the 13th. If you want to go, you need to book your stay now. Join SFL Nation at the rooftop pool of our host hotel, the Hyatt Regency, and you can reserve your room now at the special group rate at simfl.net. 2 tight ends give the ball to Harish Prasad, and Harish gets nothing on the play, maybe loses a yard. 3rd and 4.
And again, this is going right into Minnesota's hand. They want to force Carolina into these 3rd downs. They know they have the opportunity to stop them. We're talking about a Carolina team that converts less than half of their 3rd downs. And Minnesota sees this as something favorable. And now we're seeing more of an empty open, full receivers.
Dunhill will scramble, gets a 1st down, and Moore fumbles the ball, and Carolina retains possession, as I think Palmer is there to pick up the ball. Oh man, what a play.
That was good wherewithal from Palmer to make sure that she was in the area of Marcus Dunhill to ensure that if a fumble did happen, which it did, she was in that vicinity. Great work to secure that ball.
Kate Palmer, the right tackle, saving the bacon of Marcus Dunhill as this pass is incomplete off the hands of Chris Curtis. And that's one that he would like to have back. That was about 20 yards, Brett.
And we see him wear his glasses, on the halftime reports on Monday nights and then the post game as well. I'm not sure why he's not wearing his glasses in that game. It goes straight off his shoulder pad and just didn't have a thought of getting that football.
Dunhill to throw. Dunhill goes middle, the pass. Now Chris Curtis makes the tackle. Makes the catch. 2 hands on the ball and secures it. That was a great route, Brett, because that's kind of like a skinny post. And it's going against the whole flow of the play. So it is 1-on-1, and just the corner got lost.
Yeah, completely lost. And once that catch was secured by Curtis, he felt like there was maybe a 10-yard radius to the next Minnesota defender. And they're going with this empty open again. And this might be working out because the receivers are starting to get open and they're starting to, find the holes in Minnesota's zone defense.
It's not been easy for Marcus Dunhill. 3 of his last 10, and almost a fumble lost as Dunhill throws middle. The pass is picked up. The pass is intercepted and being returned, and then a fumble, and Carolina has it. Unbelievable as Marcus Dunhill recovers the ball.
He said, I'm going to get my own football here, as that was a beautiful hit. Absolute fantastic hit from Ricky Rigatoni to push that ball out of Johnny Bravo's hands into the hands of Dunhill, and they basically got themselves, something like a 10, 12-yard gain out of that.
There's nothing like playoff football in the SFL, I'm telling you. Just the craziest stuff just seemed to happen in the playoffs every time. 1st down and 10. Handoff, strong side of the field. Harish Prasad has some room and speared by the safety. That was Jubilee Marsh on the tackle. 6-yard gain, 2nd and 4.
Man, what's been working for Carolina in this half is these stretch runs on the outside block. You've seen it a couple times from Quintero and a few times from Prasad. They've both been getting some decent space to get major yardage.
Handoff. Quintero this time gets maybe 1 on the play as Alvarado makes the tackle. That's maybe the last play before the 2-minute warning. As Carolina
see if they snap it.
Yeah, they will show an I formation, but not enough time. 2-minute warning, Carolina and Minnesota. Nothing separating these ball clubs. 3-3 here from Raleigh. They show again a heavy set with 2 tight ends. Handoff goes to Quintero. He has to bubble to the left and unable to get any yardage as Alvarado makes the stop. And this will be about a 49-yard field goal attempt, Brett, which is far from a guarantee.
It's interesting that Carolina, in that heavy I set formation, they went with the receiver on one of the tight end spots, and they went his way too. That might have been just a lack of blocking from that receiver to get that first down. But like you said, Malone Brown with a 49-yarder, that's not a guaranteed field goal as well, because this is coming from the left hash mark. He's got to worry about the win.
Melillo kicks it, and this one is perfect, right between the uprights as Carolina retakes the lead, 6-3 with 1:20 left in the half.
Yeah, that's a big field goal, because you want to get those long ones out of the way, just especially because every field goal moving forward is going to be tougher and tougher, and this is going to be, I think throughout this game we're going to see plenty more field goal attempts, both from Malone Brown and Nicky Melillo. This might be just a kicker's dream game.
80 seconds left in the first half. Still plenty of time for Minnesota to respond as they will start at the 20-yard line. But, if they keep running it, I don't know if they're going to get enough to be in field goal range to end the half. They may elect to throw the ball here with Reno.
It'll be interesting how they approach this, because a lot of teams, they run the football until they get to midfield, and then they start passing it. Will Minnesota start passing it right away?
3 wide receiver set. No, it's a toss play to the right as Colin Hart. Nice pursuit by Chad Stinson. Only a gain of 3 yards.
Yeah, and you don't too often see single back right formations in this league. A lot of teams like to use the split backs if they can. And right now, I think Minnesota's playing the safe game, going with runs.
And off this one, good for a gain of about 4 yards. Isaac Knox on the carry, 3rd down and 2. And just going back to my last point, I don't know if Minnesota will have enough time really to threaten field goal range, especially since it looks like the wind is going against them. They'll hand the ball off again. Reno gives it to Colin Hart. Hart gets it to the 38. Will they elect to call a timeout? Yes, they do. So Minnesota will have about 28 seconds and 2 timeouts left to get about 30 yards to be in realistic field goal range.
Yeah, and now that we're seeing a single back formation, I want to see the receiver. Yeah, we're looking in bunch, so this is going to be probably a pass-happy formation. I'm probably looking at someone like Jason France, who I think is on that right side.
Reno throws the pass, incomplete, knocked away. Looks like Ibarri got a bit on it. Ryan also in the coverage, 25 seconds left.
Yeah, and I think Minnesota's going to stick with that pass game, because they want to move down the field. If I'm a betting man, I would say that Minnesota at least wants to tie this ball game up.
They'll show again 3 wide receivers, and they will throw. Reno, clean pocket, throws deep. The pass is caught, and then fumbled. No. Minnesota has it, but I think this will be boot reviewed. I don't know if he had possession, Brett.
Yeah, I don't even think 2 full feet were down on that before he got hit. So if I'm Carolina, I'm hoping this goes to a booth review, and I'm hoping that at least, and I don't think we're going to get that.
We will not. Tristan Hadley providing the hit. The clock keeps ticking. Minnesota doesn't call a timeout. 8 seconds left. Reno to throw. Reno goes middle. The pass is caught. Powell. And they will call a timeout with 3 seconds. So they give themselves a chance to attempt a field goal. But, we're not partial to anybody, but that seems like a miss by the officials, Brett. No, at least not reviewing it.
Yeah, I think that is a miss too. And now Minnesota, a prime opportunity to tie this game into the locker room. And you got to think, Minnesota counting their blessings. That field goal stays true. So Nicky Melillo, it looked like it was going short, but it just stays true. And it maybe had an extra yard or 2, but now we're tied here, Ramos. here we are at the halftime break. 6-6 is your score. Another low-scoring matchup here on Wild Card Weekend, and the name of the game between these two teams has just simply been who's going to have that more effective run game. And we look through the stats of this first half break. Colin Hart, 31 yards on 8 rushes, and Riley Quintero, 32 yards on 12 rushes right now. Both these running backs, trying to get up one-upsmanship on each other, but the main difference maker right now has been Johnny Reno throwing the football a little bit better. 7 of 15. He does have the 2 interceptions, but Dunhill has struggled in this game. 3 of 11. You can't afford that if your run game is struggling at this moment. Both these teams are going to have halftime adjustments here, as Jay Taylor is going to be your first half player of the game. 4 receptions for 77 yards, has had some major catches throughout this first half. And we're going to take ourselves a halftime break, and we're going to see, another ad running here, brought to you by Breaks GPT.
We just pulled a full-size Taylor Swift helmet. Shout out to all our Swifties. Travis Kelce. This is a Giants Lawrence Taylor.
Patrick Mahomes.
Chad Johnson with the Ocho Cinco.
We have a Drew Brees.
Is that an O.J. Simpson jersey?
It's an Aaron Rodgers.
Oh my goodness.
Tom Brady! Tom Brady!
Tom Brady indeed. Break into the worlds of sports memorabilia collecting with Breaks GPT, featuring signed football jerseys, helmets, photos, and more. Breaks GPT offers you the shot at winning autographed and authenticated sports memorabilia at a fraction of the price. Join the community of collectors on our Breaks GPT Facebook page and lock in your shot at hitting a humongous headliner on our site, breaksgpt.com. As I'm telling you, man, this kickers, even on kickoffs, Brett, they're just absolutely killing, and Malone Brown another touchback.
Yeah, making sure that Minnesota starts, at the 20 or even further in, because they've got some dangerous returners, and we've seen it, a time or two this season with Quag Mam especially.
Reno to throw. Reno goes deep, and the pass is caught. Jay Taylor for a first down and a gain of 14.
Yeah, it looks like they're starting to rely on Taylor. He had that, big first half, was mainly the source of the passing offense for Johnny Reno. And again, it's a beautiful catch, and you're seeing that early adjustments. Minnesota's starting to sling that rock, a little bit more aggressively now. That was a first down throw, and we've seen a lot of first down runs in the first half of Minnesota.
Handoff this time. Gain of about 1. Chad Stinson makes the tackle. And this strong rushing defense for Carolina continues.
Yeah, and I was talking about that at the halftime break. Both these running backs, Quintero and Hart, they've been struggling, trying to gain their own momentum. And it's because of these stout run defenses in the first half.
Reno to throw. Clean pocket. Throws it to the outside, but double covered by Curtis and Stinson. Deflects that pass away. 3rd down and 9. So another 3rd and long here for Minnesota.
Almost like an unintentional screen pass that went maybe a couple yards and might have moved them forward a little bit. But again, another ill-advised throw. If I'm thinking of Johnny Reno's, decision making, he's got to find something better than that.
Reno with time throws deep. The pass caught. Climbing the ladder. What a catch. And Taylor has another grab.
Man, it has been the Jay Taylor show in this last, 12, 13 minutes of this ball game here, Ramos, as he continues just to get his height advantage to affect against these secondary players, and it's been paying off. 125, and we're just 22 minutes in.
First down, 10 yards to go. Another offset single back formation. Man in motion, that is Deezer Powell from right to left. They'll hand the ball right up the middle. What a block by the offensive lineman. What a block by everybody. I mean, you cannot point out a single person as Knox gets 8 yards. Carolina's Skyhawk defenders were just falling down.
That's probably the first time in this game where we've seen the Minnesota offensive line really, take control of a play and just push and push and push, so that Knox had an opportunity just to move down that field. A great play from the line to get you 8 yards.
Can Minnesota put a touchdown on the board as Chad Stinson makes that tackle? A gain of 1 yard. It's 3rd down and inches. So expecting another heavy set, Brett, but let's see if they try to run it to the outside this time.
Yeah, this probably would be a great time to, run that to the outside. I'd be looking at maybe France's side on the right and get that lead fullback to help block.
He will go to the left, but he goes to the outside, and just enough for a 1st down as Chet Stinson makes the tackle. Another 1st down here for Minnesota, now in the red zone.
And the big key was to get that fullback to get that initial block so that Hart could get the 1st down. So that's just great running.
3 receiver set, nickel defense for Carolina. Handoff, nothing doing there. Stinson with another tackle. We haven't heard from Travan Prasad yet.
It looked like he returned late in the 2nd quarter, so I think he has returned.
Hey, he's been quiet. There it is on the field. He's been quiet, actually. So maybe he's still lingering with that injury he suffered. As Reno will throw all day. Passes deep. The pass is caught right just behind everybody. Taylor gets the catch, and it's the 1st touchdown of the game.
A complete missed assignment from the Carolina secondary, and you can't lose a guy like Jay Taylor. Yes, at the end of March, he only posted 6 yards against Charleston, but that's not the same Jay Taylor than the rest of the season. First 100-plus yard game since March 16th, and what a great way to get himself back on the board here. A huge touchdown from Minnesota, and that is probably the first advantage that Minnesota has had all game.
Yes, it is, as this extra point, is up and good. 13-6. The legend now on top. Jay Taylor, 7 catches and near 150 yards receiving. Only one of 2 wide receivers with a catch here for Minnesota. Jason Franz also no targets even. Jay Taylor has absolutely been the man for Minnesota, offensively at least. This kick will be down in the end zone for a touchback. And now Carolina, still a lot of time left here in the 2nd half, Brett, but they do need to respond.
Yeah, one of the big things that Carolina needs to do, they need to make some type of adjustment, not just in the run game. Now that you're down 7, you've got to get Dunhill to heat up.
Handoff goes to Quintero, breaks a tackle, breaks another tackle, and he's loose. A gain of 8 yards to make it a 2nd down and short. And as you were looking at the graphic right there, Carolina really struggling. So has Minnesota, to be fair, offensively until this last drive.
Yeah, the last 4 drives, we've seen field goal, touchdown. Finally, starting to see some offense here, and we're still under 20 points, Ramos, so we might see ourselves a low-scoring game if it stays like this, but there's still 16 minutes left in the game.
Handoff goes to Harish Prasad. Prasad gets 7 on the play to get a 1st down, and you look at the Carolina -2.5, so it is just a tick below that magic number of 3, which for bettors, it's a very important number. When you get 2.5, it's almost like you're saying that's a pick'em game to a degree. Most games end in a 3-point difference, so if Minnesota wins, probably is going to be by about 3 points, as this handoff gets completely shut down, and it's been Matthew Alvarado all day in the backfield.
Yeah, imagine this, Ramos. Basically a pick'em in a 5-12 matchup, and in other seasons, I think the 5 would have been favored by multiple touchdowns, but this season has been a completely different case.
Yeah, and in previous seasons, you'd see the 5 against 12, and it's probably about a 7.5.
At minimum.
The 2.5, yeah, and the 2.5 really, also counts the fact that Carolina's playing at home. If it was a neutral field, maybe it's just a straight-up pickup game, as this pass is going to go deep and incomplete. Curtis, the intended receiver, but there's a flag on the play. Maybe a holding?
Block in the back.
Block in the back. It is going to be a 15-yard penalty here for Carolina, make it a very, very difficult 2nd and 25.
That basically forces Carolina's hand to throw that football. And, I say this, Dunhill has completely struggled in this game, and he still hasn't ticked up in terms of attempts, completions. His QBR is still at 12.3. Like, he's got to step up. This is playoff football.
And for Marcus Dunhill, who is a champion, who won his championship with the Atlanta Swarm, just uncharacteristic as Dunhill tries to scramble himself, has to protect the ball, gets 6 yards and goes down. 3rd and 19, and this, Brett, there's not a whole lot of plays for 3rd and 19.
Yeah, heave that up, hope one of your receivers catches it at this point, and you can tell it. 3 receivers on the left side. I'm not even looking at any slants. I'm looking at posts. I'm looking at streaks.
Pump fake. Dunhill throws deep, and the pass is incomplete. Meerkat right there on the coverage. 4th and 19, and Minnesota gets the stop. And Carolina defense that I know, it's still like midway through the 3rd quarter, but could be feeling that, wear and tear a little bit at this point in the game, Brett. Minnesota scores another touchdown, and it's looking pretty hard here for the Skyhawks.
Yeah, you don't want to have situations like this if you're Carolina. Your run game, you can't trust it anymore now that it's a 1-touchdown game. You've got to go with the pass, and your quarterback's struggling. It's just a recipe for disaster. Carolina's defense has to keep the score where it is, and the offense just needs to wake up.
Really does. Minnesota gets really good field position at the 42-yard line. But this running game that has been hit or miss, admittedly, but Jay Taylor has been absolutely unstoppable. Toss play to the left. Hard breaks a tackle and nothing doing as Chet Stinson and the rest of this defense was rallying up to the ball. A loss of 1, 2nd and 11.
Yeah, it still looks like Shervon Prasad, he's still in that game, but he's probably still a little bit banged up. He's just kind of fighting through it. So Stinson has to play, basically 2 positions at once.
Another throw, another deep pass, and this one is caught. And who else but Jay Taylor, who's just been burning the secondary and just gotten behind everybody on numerous plays.
Yeah, and you're seeing the adjustment that Minnesota has made in getting Taylor open. Early on, he's been did a lot of crossing routes, and it just wasn't working. Now they're just using his speed to get ahead of the receivers, and he's getting wide open. First 170-yard game in a long time for Jay Taylor.
Reno to throw deep, the pass incomplete. Amari makes the pass deflection. And I've been saying Chet Stinson, I apologize, Danny Stinson, who's been absolutely amazing here for this defense. 5 solo tackles, has 1 tackle for a loss and 1 pass deflection. It's right there between him and, Mike Ryan as well, with 2 pass deflections and an interception, who've been a couple of the best players on defense for Carolina so far.
Yeah, and again, Danny Stinson, I look at him as easily a top 5 defensive player of the season nominee.
This throw goes to Easter Powell. Good for a 1st down. And that's already a 4K23 career high, so his best in at least the last 5 seasons for Jay Taylor. And we still have more than a quarter to go. Out of Johnny Reno's 217 yards, 171 have gone to Jay Taylor.
Yeah, and the next closest are only 135, and that was in Bossier City back on March 16th.
Curtis makes the tackle as Wagman gets her first catch of the game, only for a gain of 1 yard. 2nd down and 9. 3 receiver set. Reno to throw. Reno clean pocket, throws deep, another catch, and Deezer Powell has the ball inside the 5.
Yeah, and Minnesota's cooking on the pass game, and that's essentially been this difference maker in this game. And now Minnesota, could take this advantage, make it a 2-score game, which how this game has went, Ramos, it could almost be insurmountable to get 14 points.
Carolina trying to make the stop and keep it a 10-point game, which obviously still manageable with over a quarter left. Handoff to the outside, and this one is only for a gain of 1 yard. as Hart thought he had a lane, but quickly put down. Carolina now facing a second down and goal defensively.
Now, we've seen this a few times, Ramos. Carolina does a great job with goal line stands. Can they do this 2 more times?
High formation, handoff, and in for a touchdown.
No.
Ruled just in, Isaac Knox. But it's obviously worth another look.
This has got to be challenged. If I'm Carolina, this absolutely needs to be challenged. That's too short for my liking. And that's a right call. Get that red flag. Get that red hanky out.
We've seen numerous close calls, but this one is our first Retroid retroactive look. Get your console to play SFL on the go at goretroid.com. Not the best angle right there.
No, not the best. It doesn't help us.
So the ruling on the field is overturned. Carolina will succeed on that challenge and will save their timeout. Most importantly, keeps Minnesota out of the end zone for at least one more play. It was very close.
Yeah, very, very, very close. We're basically looking at 3rd down, basically the thickness of an encyclopedia to get to the end zone.
3rd and goal. I formation. Handoff up the middle, touchdown. Colin Hart walks it in, and Minnesota has a 2-touchdown lead.
Yeah, and it's tough to push an offensive team back, even when, 2 or 3 inches from the end zone. And Carolina fought valiantly. They got the challenge correct. They reversed the 1 touchdown from earlier, but Colin Hart just cruises his way in, and man, it feels like it's Minnesota's game to lose now.
This kick by Malillo is up and good. 20-6. Minnesota up top. And you're watching the Simulation Football League action here on the Virtual Football Network. This week on BFN, we'll feature Wildcard Weekend in the SFL tomorrow, plus UFL on Monday before next week's quarterfinal coverage, which starts on Saturday. Virtual Football lives on BFN, as this is going to be another touchback here for Carolina. And they just need to find rhythm, Brett, and they need to find an explosive play.
They need to find a completion, I think, and then they'll get themselves a little bit momentum. That's all it takes for me to get that momentum. Get a completion.
High formation, roll out. Dunhill will throw across his body as Quintero gets the catch, breaks a tackle, and then carries a defender 3 yards for a 15-yard gain.
Yeah, maybe that's something that they need to do. Just go with the swing pass to your running back and just use his wheels to get those first downs. See if you can do that 6, 7, 8 more times. Maybe you'll get to the end zone then.
That's the completion, and it's a good one, 15 yards. Decent to start your drive. Plenty of game still left. As Dunhill will throw, the blitz is coming, and he got crushed as he was letting loose. Chris Curtis, the intended receiver.
We've seen that often in this game, Ramos, where it feels like Dunhill has an open man, but time runs out on him, and he just can't get that ball off.
Just about it took a couple of tenths too late here for Dunhill. I mean, if he lets loose of the ball just a fraction of a second quicker, that's a completion. And Riley Quintero has nothing on the ground. Another tackle at the line of scrimmage, and it's 3rd down and 10 for Carolina. And they just cannot afford to get off the field.
Even with 11 minutes left to go, if I'm the Carolina head coach, I'm saying I'm not running this football. I'm passing it the rest of the way.
3rd down and 10. Less than a minute left here in the 3rd quarter. And in motion, that is Chase Earl, who's been very quiet in tonight's ball game. Dunhill to throw. Dunhill avoids the pressure, throws deep, and the pass is caught somehow. somehow caught by Adam Banks.
Somehow is right, Ramos, because that was a bone-jarring hit. You'll see this on the replay. He had a wide open space, a little bit of a cut in, cut out from Banks, and then he just gets drilled in the rib cage and manages to hold on to that football. That taking the breath out of him, but breathing some fresh life into Carolina.
Adam Banks, the leader in yards here receiving for Carolina. And there's another great catch. Chase Earl, first catch of the game. And Carolina, I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about. Get rhythm and get an explosive play.
Yeah, just need to keep getting those big catches, because I don't think Minnesota secondary is going to let up, especially when you've got Derek Meerkat in the weights. Just a great catch. They absolutely mossed him too, so great work. And they're going to end the quarter off on a good note.
Yes, end of 3. Minnesota leads by 2 touchdowns, but Carolina is moving the ball. You're watching the Simulation Football League here on BFN. So we want the SFL to reach more people. Do you? The best way to do that is to smash the like button, leave a comment on the video, and subscribe to the channel. You can help us reach all the people who need more football in their lives. Thanks for your support of the Virtual Football Network. Handoff goes to the outside. Nice vision right there by Quintero, actually. He only gets 2, but that could have been another loss on the play.
Yeah, easily. And again, Minnesota's defensive line, scariest that I've ever seen them this season. We can go back to, the sack totals, but they get their fair share of TFLs as well, just in the form of, seeing guys like Max Knight get 7 TFLs is scary.
Dunhill with a pump fake, and he goes down on the sack. And that's, again, exactly what Carolina cannot afford. 3rd and long has been brutal to them.
Man, it took him to the 4th quarter, but Minnesota finally gets a sack. And it's, the person that doesn't have the top sacks in that defensive line, it's Chloe Meerkat who gets involved. Just her 3rd and a half sack this season.
2nd season in the SFL for Meerkat. Both of them with Minnesota. The tallest player of this defense at 6'7". 4 receivers. Dunhill, clean pocket, throws deep, and the pass is incomplete. Another great coverage downfield. Johnny Bravo on the pass deflection. And Carolina will be forced to attempt a field goal, presumably. Will be about a 46-yard field goal attempt from here.
Yeah, that's got to be rough. That's got to be rough for Carolina, because they had momentum ending the quarter, and it just stalled. And not in like a slow way. It just halted to a grinding stop.
Oh my God! And this one is wide by Malone Brown. Brown, who's been absolutely amazing this game, with both field goals and touchbacks, just hooks it right.
Man, that's a tough pill to swallow if I'm Carolina, because that's a field goal that you need just to stay on pace with Minnesota. And now we're looking at this as Minnesota, if they get themselves a field goal, we might as well put a coffin in Carolina's playoff hopes.
And just anemically, it's just such a letdown to have a decent drive and unable to get any points on the board. Because with that field goal, it's an 11-point game. You can get a touchdown, a 2-point conversion, and then another field goal. But still a 14-point deficit as Colin Hart just runs it right up the middle for a gain of 8 yards for 2nd and 2.
Yeah, this is true clock mode that we're going to see moving forward for Minnesota. They've got themselves that healthy, comfortable lead that they've been seeking all game, and now they can just cruise their way with Colin Hart and with Isaac Knox.
2nd down and 2 yards to go. Jason France goes in motion. This handoff going to Knox. Knox gets absolutely bulldozed, but gets the 1st down. And that's going to be another 2 minutes off the clock here for Minnesota. Carolina needs to force a takeaway. Force a turnover here. Handoff goes again to Colin Hart. Stinson on the stop on another healthy gain of 6 yards.
They have to look at Colin Hart, and they've got to look at them saying, hey, he's fumbled the ball 3 times this season. We got to get a 4th one on our table. They need to get that ball back, and they need to get it back quick.
Yeah, and Minnesota now crossing the midfield stripe. Already threatening with more points on the board. Handoff again. Knox now gets caught behind the line, but doesn't matter. Still gets about 2.5 and makes it 3rd and inches.
Yeah, we're going to see these heavy formations from Minnesota. I-wing jokers, I-jacks. We'll even see in certain moments. They're going to use as many linemen as possible and tight ends to help blocking for both Hart and Knox.
Tight end Sand running right up the middle with Hart. Gets 3 on the play. 1st down, Minnesota. And, this Carolina defense, who again has been pretty good stopping the run. This D-line has to be pretty tired at this point of the game.
Yeah, it's been almost 30 run attempts from the Minnesota offense, which, is almost a standard. And we're going to see a lot more with these last 6.5 minutes to go in this quarter. And just hand that ball off.
Toss play goes to the left. Knox gets shouldered down by Shravan Prasad. And Carolina cannot allow any more yardage. I mean, a field goal is almost the end of the game, pretty much.
Yeah, and looking at the field position here, give Mickey Melillo maybe another 10 yards. He probably gets an automatic, so can't move any forward if I'm Carolina.
Danny Stinson gets another tackle. This one, another stop at the line of scrimmage. 3rd down and 10. And do you run it again, Brett, or do you gamble and try to throw for a 1st down?
Well, here's the thing. Minnesota's been 8 out of 11 on 3rd down, so anything seems to be working for them.
And they will throw hard, throws deep, and the pass is caught. And I meant Reno throws. The pass is caught by Deezer Powell, and that is a nail in the coffin here. What a catch.
And it feels like Reno is woken up in this second half and has just thrown absolute darts to his guys. And that's just telling your receivers, go long. Whoever can catch that the closest will get it. You saw all 3 receivers, Minson, Powell, and I think that was Quag Nam in that vicinity as well. And Powell just gets his mitts on it.
Reno to throw deep again. The pass incomplete. Bari with a perfectly timed hit. That was E.J. Minson, the intended receiver.
That's basically Minnesota smelling blood in the water, and they're looking for the jugular. That's one of those passes where not only is a heat check for Reno, but they're looking at this to basically seal the deal if they can get that touchdown. So maybe they'll pass it one more time, but I could see this being a run from this formation.
Yeah, they will go back to the run as Colin Hart gets 5 on the play, so cuts the yardage needed by half. 5 minutes left in the 4th quarter. I will run it here, Brett. I mean, you have your field goal in your pockets pretty much.
They're in a bunch, though, so I could see this being a pass.
It is going to be a throw. Reno to throw. Reno pump fakes all day. Throws deep. The pass is caught. Taylor again, as Tristan Hadley got lost in coverage. Jay Taylor with another touchdown. And Minnesota, barring something spectacular, is going to the quarterfinals.
And it happens again where, it seems like this soft zone from Carolina, and they completely miss Jay Taylor. That's what happened on the touchdown earlier from Taylor, and now he's got 2. And it's almost like mirror image of the last one, too. Behind the safeties, didn't know where he was, and Minnesota, I think they just nailed their ticket to the quarterfinals, and they're going to be on their way to Baltimore next week.
The Minnesota Legend, a team that has made, very impressive playoff runs over the last few seasons. Last season, just a game away from the championship game, a game decided in overtime. It's been a team that has been right there on the brink of making a championship game, and what a showing here in Carolina. And again, the game is not over. It's a 3-touchdown game, though. You have to feel bad for Carolina, Brett, as his return goes to the 31-yard line. A team that has been in the open up over the last few seasons. This was a brilliant regular season at 8-4, winning a very tough division that they have. And, it's not been their night.
No, it definitely hasn't. It feels like, especially that passing offense, it fell asleep completely in this game, and they're starting to wake up now. But now it's become too little, too late, and Minnesota's starting to run up the board here.
First down and 10 for Carolina. They need something. They need something like right now on this play, pretty much, to stay alive. Dunhill to throw. Has a clean pocket. Throws middle. The pass is caught. Banks with the catch. 57 yards so far. And then we'll go.
They have to go hurry up.
Yeah, absolutely. Dunhill throws again. The pass is caught again. And that one is DeSantis, I think. Yeah, Vince DeSantis, first catch.
Yeah, got to spread that football around. You can't throw to the same target in a hurry up.
Dunhill to throw. Middle again. The pass almost picked off. It's Marsh. Gets his hands on it. Second time Marsh almost gets the interception.
Yeah, I wanted to get this pulled up here, but Minnesota has completely dominated on third down, where in contrast, Carolina completely struggled this game. And you see it just by the markers here, 10 of 13 against 3 of 10. That's two completely different teams.
Yeah, no, situational football will win you or lose you most games, as Dunhill throws the pass to caught. Earl breaks a tackle. Earl gets to the 15-yard line. Well, actually, they were ruling at 17.
Just need to keep pushing.
Dunhill to throw. Pass incomplete. A little bit low, but catchable by Curtis. Unable to make the grab. As I was saying, situational football, third down conversions, converting in the red zone. Those things are going to win you or lose you most games, Brad.
Yeah, and even though Minnesota's had more opportunities in that red zone, Carolina's just they haven't delivered, and you can see it by just getting 2 field goals as points.
This pass, another attempt at the seam, and Matthew Alvarado, I'm telling you, he's been absolutely everywhere.
That's how he's been this season for Minnesota. Him and Danny Stinson are very similar players, even though one plays on the inside and one plays on the outside. Like, both these gentlemen have been, balling out tonight, and Alvarado has been, a key defensive player.
This pass deep, incomplete. It looked like for a second Banks had a chance, but the pressure coming at Marcus Dunhill at a rate of knots, and you have to go for it, of course.
Yeah, you easily got to go for it. I'm not settling for field goals here. Down 27-6 here on home turf. You can't turn this into an absolute embarrassment in a playoff game. You got to fight for every yard to the end zone.
Dunhill to throw. The pass tipped away, incomplete. Minnesota will take over. And at this point, obviously, the legend, just throw every passing play of your playbook to the side. We're going to see run here for the legend.
We're going to see some tosses. We'll see some slams, some ISOs, some dives heading that way, some stretches, every kind of football terminology for a run that you can muster up in your head. But Minnesota might as well use these last 4 minutes to, kind of internally celebrate before we hit triple zeros.
Jason Franz in motion. Going to be split out to the right. Handoff goes to Colin Hart. Hart breaks the tackle and finally stopped after a gain of 3 yards. And I don't think Carolina has approached this with a bad playbook at all, Brett. It's been Minnesota earning this one defensively. I mean, it's been unbelievable for the legend.
Yeah, if I was preparing for Minnesota, I'd be looking to shut down that run game, which ultimately I think they've done pretty well with. Like, in a per quarter basis, you look at the first and third quarters, limiting them to under 20 yards on those quarters. You call that a successful quarter. You just couldn't convert that to a full 40 minutes.
After the 2-minute warning, we're gonna run the quarterfinal schedule, so stay tuned for that. Handoff goes to Knox, unable to break the tackle from Danny Stinson. Gain of a yard. And obviously Minnesota, what they care about is the clock. They got to run it here on 3rd and 6.
And just continue running that football. Doesn't matter if it's, 3rd and 6 or 3rd and 66. Just run that football, run that timeout.
Likely the last play before the 2-minute warning. If you're just joining us, this was a very tight contest throughout the entire ball game at half. it seemed that no team could score a touchdown. Like we were just hoping and praying maybe one team will score a touchdown, and Minnesota just absolutely dominating here in the second half. A 3-yard gain will bring up a 4th down and 3. Minnesota will punt after the 2-minute warning, presumably.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too shocked if we had the 2-minute warning and then the punt goes away. But right now, it's been Minnesota's focus just to shed that clock down. And man, it's absolutely quiet here in North Carolina. It feels like the breath has been taken away from all these fans here.
Yeah, absolutely. Minnesota actually elects to snap the ball before the 2-minute warning, so this is one that will take us to the interlude, as this return will go to the 48-yard line. Minnesota 27, Carolina 6. Under 2 minutes left here in the wild card round. You're watching the Simulation Football League right here on the Virtual Football Network. And we're gonna already run you through the slate of games for the quarterfinal round. Number 12 Minnesota goes at number 1 Baltimore on Saturday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time with Colin and Rick Northrup. Then we will have that same day Denver and Vancouver. So Jeremy Vega going against his original team in Vancouver, where he started as a player. That is on Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time with Michael Truello and Mike O'Neill. Then on Sunday, we have number 6 Albuquerque at number 4 Mexico City on a South Division matchup.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah, Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time with Chad Rowland and Eric Vincent. And to close it out, number 10 Fort Worth at number 2 Washington. That's Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time with Chris Curtis and Mark Lopez. So a tasty slate of games, Brett. Dunhill will throw deep. The pass is caught by Curtis. Best catch of the game by Curtis, perhaps. First down.
Yeah, going back to that slate there, a lot of juicy matchups there. I look at that Baltimore-Minnesota game, if this stays true, and that's an exciting matchup. You're looking at this 1 versus 12, but I look at this as two teams that have essentially dominated the 4K23 era, locking horns in the quarterfinals.
Just fine margins here in the SFL. Truly, any team can beat anybody, as this is the last nail in the coffin. David Ladders has been sensational from first quarter to last. Gets the interception.
Yeah, this basically seals the deal here, and we'll see our first 12 seed winning the wild card since back in season 20. And get this, Minnesota was the victim of a 12 seed back in that season 20 playoffs, losing to then Alamo City 20-3. And this is a pretty similar score line here, 27-6 against these Carolina Skyhawks. So maybe getting an old ghost off their shoulders.
So as we reach the last 96 seconds of the game, we do want to give, just a shout out and remembering Ibari Eamon England, who sadly passed away a few weeks ago. This is obviously the last final minutes of his SFL career, Brett, and it's such a sad story, my thoughts go to his family and friends again, and it was a pleasure to watch him throughout his career.
Yeah, Carolina basically, ever since the unfortunate event of Ibari passing away mid-season, it basically was the Skyhawks' goal to get him to the championship game, and they fell short in this game, and now we have to just use these last little while to remember Ibari, and just know that he was a major cornerstone for this Carolina franchise for so long as well. Like you think of that secondary, Ibari was part of it for such a long time.
Very strong secondary that helped turn this Carolina franchise around, a Carolina franchise that for so long was kind of middling, kind of like in the mid tiers of the SFL, at least in record. When you look at Carolina's history, in season 21 backwards, 5-7. They did have 7-5 record in season 20, but 6-6, 4-8, 4-8, 5-7, 5-7, and the last the previous seasons. Carolina Skyhawk team with 8 wins, which is best in franchise history. They should be very proud of the seasons they put together, and fortunately, it just wasn't their night.
Yeah, and the East is always going to be tough when you have teams like Florida and Atlanta, in that schedule, and then you always also have to think of the rising teams in future seasons, like Charleston and Nashville. They're not going to be the same 3-9 and 2-10 teams every season. Excuse me. So you can't just say, oh, Carolina just won an easy division. No, they had to fight their way to 8-4. They had to fight their way to win the East and get to 8 wins.
This catch is caught. Adam Banks. Likely the second to last play of the game. 4 seconds left in the fourth quarter. One more snap. It's actually going to be a spike, so we'll see one more play here for Carolina. And kind of just to your point, I mean, Carolina beat, some quality opponents so far, this season. Sin City, Atlanta, who was very close from that playoff spot. Arizona, when we know is always a tough out. Florida is always a tough out. They beat Fort Worth early in the year. I mean, those are some quality wins, and even in their losses, they were pretty tight. So that is the season for Carolina. Minnesota, though, goes through to the quarterfinals after they defeat the Carolina Skyhawks 27-6. And as we see the last replay and the final whistle, Brett, when I hear your player of the game, and kind of also want to ask you, what's, other than the Vancouver game, your most anticipated matchup for next week?
Well, like I said, I'm looking at that Minnesota-Baltimore game, and you know what? I think, Albuquerque, Mexico City, like that's expected to tear down the house. But I think leaving that Fort Worth, Washington game as the final game of the quarterfinals, I think that's going to be, a great idea from the league, because both of these teams, they have heavy firepower, and they could really run up that score. But we saw Fort Worth come back from 24-7 and get 41 points on the board. So, you see the potential for Fort Worth. As for this game, there's a lot of candidates to go through. I think Matthew Alvarado had, a quiet but really, really good game. Out of the bunch, David Leathers had the 2 interceptions there. But this was the Jay Taylor show, especially in that third quarter. So that's my game ball, at least.
Yeah, to me as well. Jay Taylor gets my player of the game, and I will actually say Fort Worth at Washington. I think it's fascinating. Fort Worth, a team that has been around for a long while, and with a very good chance to make the championship. And Washington, basically newcomer, quote unquote, as the number 2 seed. I think it's fascinating. For Brett Solberg, providing the color, Justin Reside and Ron Haynes. Our producer, as always, Cameron Irvine. This was Ramos Lynn. Thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you in the quarterfinals. Good night.
Ba-doo!